Good morning. Today is going to be a very busy day in the garden. It is, oh my gosh, it's already scorching. Well, by my standards, it's scorching. It's not even 8 o'clock yet. It's about 5 till 8, and it's already 75 degrees here. So it's supposed to be, I think, 92, mid 90s today. So I wanted to get in the garden as early as possible today. Start getting into the routine of doing my morning gardening because I've been doing gardening in the late afternoon, early evening, but it's starting to get hot here in Texas, so time to start getting into my morning routine. Also today I have a couple of photo shoots to do this afternoon, so I want to get this done and get cleaned up before I have to head out for that as well. So what I need to do as I look and survey the garden, I definitely need to pull up some weeds. But what I also need to do is I need to tie up some tomato plants. As I'm looking around, ooh yeah, I definitely need to tie up some tomato plants. Um, I need to get some stakes up for some peppers. I have a little spider here who keeps putting up a web, so whenever I go into the garden, I walk right into it. In the same place. I keep taking it down, hoping he'll go somewhere else, but he's not. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I need to tie up some tomatoes. I need to definitely, most definitely, get some bush beans into the garden today because that's long overdue. And I also had noticed I have a new area by our storm shelter that I have some corn. I'm doing the three methods, the three sisters method for the first time this season. I know I probably overcrowded it a little bit, but it is what it is. But I need to stake up some corn over there because I noticed that it was blown over from a very windy day that we had recently. So I need to take care of that. Do a lot of watering, which means also I need to finish establishing my drip garden irrigation. Gosh, so much to do. I won't bore you with the detail. I won't bore you with the details. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started now and just kind of take you along with me. Oh my gosh, so much tying up of tomatoes I need to do. And I have massive bug damage on my collards. Okay, let me get to this and stop rambling. And this right here is just a little too young to start putting on fruit, so I'm going to pull these off. And looks like I have a little sucker right there that needs to come off as well. So I was really hoping to have some very beautiful sunflowers just at the base, at the top of this mound, that would just really be tall and just picturesque, and didn't happen because I kept having slugs or snails or grasshoppers or even roly-polies just eating everything, so it didn't happen. So it's about 10:30 right now. I've been out here for about 2.5 hours. I just turned on one of my zones for the drip irrigations for my container beds to get everything watered for now. But I need to get inside. Didn't do as much as I wanted to, but still got a lot done. But I just need to go inside and get ready for my photo shoots today. So I'm gonna go ahead and eat and get ready for that before I have to leave. But I think I'm gonna try to be here early again tomorrow morning. I think it's supposed to be another hot one tomorrow as well. So I'm gonna try to be out here early tomorrow. And it's really windy right now, so I hope this little doohickey that I mustered up for my mic was working fine to block the wind. But I did quite a bit of pest control today. I found a caterpillar inside one of my stalks for my corn. Got rid of him. Also on one of my onions, got rid of him. Dealing with grasshoppers. And I have to say, grasshoppers haven't been such a bane of my existence so far this season. I do see a lot of little baby ones that are still doing some damage, but usually about this time of year, I would say the first 2 seasons, I was dealing with the really big, more mature grasshoppers. But every year I just try to kill them, and we've cut back the hedges and the weeds around our property so they have less habitation to dwell in around the property. So I know that that's also killed down the grasshopper population, but I'm still going to have to deal with them a little bit this year, it looks like. So we'll see. So I'm going to head inside and wipe this salty sweat off of me, eat, and get ready for my photo shoot. And I will see you all tomorrow. So today I got started here a little too late for my liking. I had to run a couple errands to the market and also had to edit some images that I captured yesterday. But I like to always take my time, have a little tea, and just kind of look over the garden a little bit, pray about having the eyes to see what I need to see the pests that I need to address. I saw a couple of grasshoppers today, so I think today I'm going to take some time out. I'm not sure. It's supposed to rain a little bit this afternoon, But I was thinking of getting some soapy water and just carrying it in my hip holster, and as I see them, just spray them a little bit of soapy water. That's always helped in the previous seasons without being too invasive with as far as pesticides in my garden. So I need to get a bottle of soapy water made for that today. So it looks like my worm bins have shrunk down a little bit, so I think I need to take a look at that as well and harvest any worm castings there are and feed them again. I need to take these bottles off my seedlings that I was using to protect my okra from grasshoppers and roly-polies and whatever else wants to eat my little seedlings. It looks like they may be a little bit stronger now. And it's so nice. Look at this. Oh my gosh. This is what they call a millweed assassin bug. And I've been seeing these all around my garden this season. I noticed a few last year. At first they really freaked me out because I didn't know what the heck they were, and there were some that got pretty massive. But after I did a little more research, I found out that they are actually beneficial to the garden. And they are apparently voracious predators. They like to eat aphids, caterpillars. They pretty much eat anything. Unfortunately, it also includes ladybugs and bees as well if they can get their hands on them. But I am happy to see them in my garden this season because, I mean, I think every bed that I have, I've seen at least one, if not more than one, in each bed on some plants. They're all nymphs, very small ones, but I'm happy to see them. I also saw my first ladybug yesterday in the garden too as well. So I'm hoping that in conjunction with all the pests that I've been getting in the garden since, you know, I started the garden, every year I get more and more pests, but I'm also getting more and more beneficials. So I'm hoping that I have a more eco-balanced garden this season. And speaking of the garden this season, and this is the last thing I'm going to say before I have to get to planting some beans today because I'm way behind on the beans. I want to try to get them in before it rains, just in case it does rain. But in terms of the garden this season, I'm really going to try something different. I'm going to, I think, oh, there's a bee enjoying my nasturtium. I love it. I am doing intensive crop planting. I've always in the previous seasons kind of did everything spaced out the way they say it, keep everything mulched in between plants, give everything the space that they need, companion planting and all that. And I'm still going to do the companion planting, but I'm going to do everything a lot more condensed, a lot more crowded, so that one, I don't have to require as much mulch. The plants themselves would do the mulching. I'm going to try to do a lot of vertical planting as well, a lot of containers this season. But as far as the beds go, they will be intensely planted and see how that works. I know from previous experiences in the garden this past few seasons. Oh, 1 second. I see a caterpillar that I must get rid of. This is why it's so important to be just inspecting your garden every day. Right on my borage. Oh, ooh, he's a feisty one. Oh, got him. I'm not sure if you can see that. Hold on. That one right there, yeah. He was eating my borage. Ugh, he had a poopy in his bottom. Sorry. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of holes in my borage and as well as caterpillar droppings. And whenever I inspect my plants, I can't find them. So I was glad to see this one. But this is why I enjoy walking through the garden and just kind of enjoying God's majesty, if you will. And just appreciating every little thing, hearing the birds. Sometimes I hear the woodpeckers as well. But I like to address the pests and see what I need to do. And I always ask God in the morning, please give me eyes to see and wisdom and discernment to see what needs to be addressed and how to address it. And I've always, in previous seasons, every time I come to the garden, I pray for God's guidance and wisdom in taking care of this garden and being a good steward of it. But this season, this has been my 4th season in ground. 5 seasons of gardening. First season was in container pots, doing terracotta pots with just peppers and tomatoes. But as far as being in ground, this garden has grown very, very fast. But as the seasons progress, I just get more and more attached, and not in a way that I'm idolizing the garden, but it makes me grow more and more appreciative of how beautiful God planned everything. Am I the best gardener? Nope. I am definitely still learning and still have a lot to learn. Still experimenting, like the cinder block bed over there of garlic that was heavily seeded last season. And that's another thing. I'm sorry. I planted this garlic last season for harvest this season. And it was very hard for me because I hadn't been in the garden for a very long time. So for me, the reason I think I'm so emotional now is because it was very hard for me to get back into the garden this season after last season. Because towards, I guess it was around fall, we had a visitor to our garden that stole my heart, and P would deny it, but it stole his heart too as well. But we had a little bunny rabbit that came and visited me one Saturday morning when I was, surveying the garden. I saw something in the corner of my eye. And we have a lot of feral cats in the neighborhood, so I thought it was just a little feral cat. So I told it to scat before I knew what it was, but it didn't scat. So I looked over to my side, and there was this black little bunny that was at the fence just staring at me. And it was a domesticated rabbit. And after further research, I looked it up. We think it was a Jersey Woolly or Jersey Woolly. It was black with a white little cotton tail. And it had a little white fur on the underside. But anyway, I fed him some lettuce that was starting to bolt in the garden. I need to get to planting some beans. And I see a grasshopper on my borage. Right there. There you are. Okay, but back to the story of this rabbit. Anyways, he kept coming back over and over again to the garden and visiting me. And I would give him water, things like that, just to make sure that he was doing well. And this rabbit, I don't think I said this yet or not, but this rabbit is obviously a domesticated rabbit that got away. His owner let him go. I don't know what. But he was going about town and coming to visit me every single day. And the more he came, the more he stole my heart, the more he stole Pete's heart. And I would come out in the morning like clockwork. He knew I was going to be down here, and he would come and visit me. He'd come sneaking through our fence on the outside of our property, and he would come hopping and running up to me and just like so happy to see me, but he'd always stop just before he got to me because he wasn't quite sure if I was still a friend or foe, even though I was giving him water every single day. I mean, of course, they are prey animals, so they're a little more cautious. And so, Marty girl, let me concentrate what I'm doing here. Okay. So basically, he started trusting me more and more. And as I gave him water every now and then, I would watch him closely, and I realized he was never closing his eyes. And I was like, what's up with that? And then I did some research, and I found out that since they are a prey animal, that's a defense mechanism. They don't close their eyes even when they sleep unless they feel safe and secure. So I thought it was just kind of interesting that he never closed his eyes. Kind of freaked me out at first. But I say that because later down the line, and this is probably about a month or so after he got used to us, now he was coming twice a day to come see us. And I would feed him a little bit of the garden, greens, or he'll help himself. And I would give him some water. And I think I'm going to sow 9. I know this is probably a little crap. I'm going to do 9 seeds in this. Some may or may not germinate. But he had to come so frequently that he had made himself pretty much at home. He'd come, we'd do our little, dance. Hey, how you doing? Oh, and by the way, Pete named him 8-Ball because he was all black with just a little bit of white. So we called him 8-Ball. I'd come out and I'd be like, 8-Ball! And he'd come running up to me. I'd give him his water, and he started making himself at home. And he made actually for himself a small little den area, a little cubby in one of my garden beds next to a huge marigold plant. So he would sit there and lie there. He would take his nap with his eyes open at first. And then he'd take a nap. He'd hear me coming. He'd look at me, kind of, see what's going on, take a little nibble of the marigold, and go back to sleep. So I assumed he was sleeping because he could have been sleeping or not sleeping because his eyes were opened. And so one day I realized as he was laying in the bed and I was doing some gardening right beside him in the same bed, and his eyes were closed. And I was like, oh, 8-Ball, you trust me. And of course, he woke up and was like, what's up with you? What are you doing waking me up? And so another time, he was coming out, manning up, like he ain't got a heart for this rabbit. And he came out, and I was in the house cooking dinner or doing something in the house. And he came into the house and he said, guess what? And I was like, what? He's like, 8-Ball, let me pet his stomach. And I was just, no way, because he still hadn't allowed me to get too close, even though I was the one that he would come to see and run to, and I was the one who was giving him water every single day, twice a day. But he chose Pete. He's like, yeah, he even rolled over for me. And I was livid. I was like, how dare he? I felt so betrayed. So anyway, shortly after that, he allowed me to also rub his belly and play with his nose and his whiskers. So at this point, Pete and I decided this is ridiculous. He's obviously a domesticated rabbit. We have a lot of, feral cats, dogs in the neighborhood. We can't allow him to keep coming and going willy-nilly because it's not safe for him in this neighborhood. So we decided at some point, okay, we're going to go ahead and take him in, because also it was fall, the winter was coming. We didn't want him to be out in the cold. So we decided we're going to take this rabbit in. And we shopped on Amazon, got him his pen, got him his little bedding area. And one morning, as we were looking for a really nice dish, I came out to the garden, and I was thinking, okay, he's not here yet. I kept calling 8-Ball, 8-Ball. He still hadn't come. And after a while, because he was late, I started getting a really sick feeling in my stomach. And I was like, Lord God, please let this rabbit be okay. Because the night before, a couple nights before, we had seen some dogs in the neighborhood, and I didn't like that feeling that I got when I saw these dogs. And I wasn't sure how savvy, how quick, 8-Ball was in the hood. And so I kept waiting and kept calling 8-Ball, 8-Ball. He wouldn't come. I went and told Pete, I have a very bad feeling 8-Ball isn't here yet. And he's normally on time. So I went back out again, and this time Pete came with me. And I looked up, and I had seen this hawk just circling our block, our street. And it kept circling, and every time he'd have a rotation, he'd come lower and lower. And Pete was like, oh, that doesn't look good. And I was like, oh my gosh. So we went out into the street and just started looking around. And we looked across the street near our neighbor's house. And we have this little ditch area. And we saw this black lump in the ditch. And Pete's like, oh, that's not good. So we walked closer. And sure enough, it was 8 ball in the ditch. And I felt really bad because I figured at that point, I think it had, well, we both think it had happened that morning because the night before it had rained and his fur was completely dry. So it didn't happen the night before. So we think it was happening that morning. And so I thought where it had happened that perhaps he was on his way to come and see me and a dog got him. No blood on him. So obviously my imagination went wild. I just imagined this black dog that I seen previously just grab him by the neck and just shake him and drop him like it was nothing. And that was my rabbit. So I wept. Well, more likely I wailed. And to this day, Pete, I think he was upset with the fact that 8 ball had died and died the way that he had. Roly-polies, man. But I think he says sometimes too that he didn't like to see me that upset. Because I mean, I wailed, and for days I cried. Because that was the day that we had decided that when he gets into the yard today, we are going to trap him in the yard and get him used to staying in the yard because we knew what areas of the fence line that he was coming through. So I had the chicken wire all laid out and thought as soon as he comes into the yard, I'm going to lay chicken wire on the openings of the fence line so he can't get back out. So he's forced to stay in the yard. And then get him, used to the yard for a few days, further enforce that we are his friends, and then eventually bring him to the house. Well, God answered my prayer. I asked God previously before seeing 8 ball, I don't know why I'm so upset, but if anything has happened to this rabbit, please give me closure. Let me know if anything has happened to him, and just let me know what has happened to him so that I could have closure. I just wanted closure. I just love this bunny so much. I wanted him. But if something had happened to him, which I felt in my gut that it was not a good thing that he wasn't there, I just asked God, just let me know what has happened so I can have closure. And sure enough, when we found him, I wailed and I wailed and I wailed. P was not doing well because he didn't like to see me that upset. And as I wailed, I just said, God, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. I wish it wasn't the case, but thank you for letting me know what happened to him. And so we picked him up with a shovel and we buried him along the property line just so he wouldn't be eaten. We said our goodbyes. And after that, long story short, long story long, that's why it was hard for me to be back in the garden. So yeah, I say all this because looking over here at the cinder block bed that I planted all the garlic, probably a tad bit too close. I probably could have spread it out over the garden area, but I just wasn't feeling it when I planted it. And that kind of makes me feel bad. So I'm hoping that regardless of my attitude, that I still have a good garlic harvest. And that I do have some good bulbs. We'll see. Oh, these little bugs. So yeah, it's getting hot out here. I'm kind of kicking myself right now for not doing this sooner and for procrastinating. So I didn't know until I was going to edit my footage that the last bit of the footage was not recorded because apparently I did not hit record and didn't realize it. So lesson learned in the future, be more cognizant of making sure that little red dot in the corner says record. But in the meantime, thanks for joining me. Thanks for bearing with my long story about my poor sweet rabbit 8 ball. I'm better about it now, but it still hurts. I still miss him. But anyway, I will be in the garden again soon and giving you some more footage as to how the garden is developing. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.